edition of Regional Property Unplugged for this Tuesday. We've got a special guest today, and it's Jason Modica, the Mayor of Mildura. How are you, man?
Straight to the top.
Hello, Shonah. Hello, Mark. How are you? Thank you very much for the invitation.
No worries.
Thanks for coming on.
We're really excited to have guests on because we get to go really in depth of what's happening in our community. And wow, and like, first of all, congratulations, because wow, it's 3 months already that you've been mayor.
Thank you very much for the congratulations. It's a huge step up. There's, we really live in an amazing place, and, just the machinations of what council does in the service in a practical sense is huge. And then the little extras, like a South Mildura or an old power station being done up on the riverfront makes me very proud to be elected with the other 8 people who put their hand up, and hopefully we can work well for the community. But, back to what you guys are saying, Mildura has done really well for a very long time. I think it's had 1% growth since 1980, which doesn't sound like much, but compounded gives us that real push to be a large metropolitan centre, which we are.
That's right. Hey, it's interesting, Mr. Modica, you were just saying that you got an invitation to go on Sky News, but because you're already committed to Regional Property Unplugged, it was a lot more important. Obviously Sky News doesn't have a bad reach, but when you're talking to us, I can understand why you said no to them. So thanks for that.
Look, I love a bit of reframing of the truth, and you always got to look after your locals first. They wanted to talk about the lockdown, and I think another story pumped up, but was always got to fit it in with you guys, because I think it's really interesting the way media has changed and how and where we look for a trusted overview of what's going on, whether it's real estate or water trading, or who might want to move here, and what are the pros and cons. So it's a great service you put on, and I would encourage anyone else to get involved with it, because there's an intimacy there that is really rewarding.
Yeah, that's right. Now look, we were talking before about, I guess, your start into politics, or the world of standing up for something, and that was the Nichols Point School, correct? They were about to tear it down, the old school that I actually went to, and the building where I started prepping. That was your entry into this world, wasn't it?
Very much so. Look, I'd always been political. I was always very, a few members of my family too, Mark. We don't mind an argument when the time comes, and that has its positives and its negatives. But I'd moved to Nichols Point in 2006, and it, worked really hard to get out here, being a tradie as well. And then when that came up in 2015 with Mandy Gowdy and Yvette Turlin and quite a few other people, we just thought that the school was worth saving, and we got well in behind that. But we came up against a lot of probably bureaucratic things to overcome. Yeah, lots of it. But in the end, it had stayed there as it was for so long. But the peculiar thing is that the school had a reno in 1923 and another in 1945. Those numbers mightn't be perfect, but around that time. So it didn't have any. It only had a motive value to people rather than architectural or state. But the funny thing was that the rotunda, built in 1907, which is now heritage listed, which is such a positive thing for the town, and that will be open public space one day as we grow. The Heritage Vic said, "Oh no, don't worry about the school." But that rotunda is the best example of a rotunda in northern Victoria, where the kids used to sit under when it was 41 degrees in 1909. So that was listed, and it inadvertently helped save the school, and has given us an opportunity to have open public space as Nichols Point grows, which it will.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, but it's an interesting step up too to tackle. It's one thing to have an opinion and to be prepared to articulate what you're thinking or what you'd like to change, but to step into that space has been challenging for me, but rewarding too. But it's a good challenge. But if you believe in something, I support anyone for standing up and trying to change something, because that's when the hard work begins.
It takes special people. Sorry, Mark. It takes special people, I feel like, to be able to, like yourself, to be in politics. Shout out to my dad, who is a councillor of Swan Hill. Hey, Dad's Heathcote. And I growing up and seeing that you have that inner you know, what you want to put out there, what feels good for you, your, you know, what your virtues are, what your standards are and stuff, but you're also there for the people. So it is a bit of a tug of war, isn't it, really? And really trying, and I know that how stressful that is, I've seen it, how stressful that is to actually do right for the collective. So, and my hat's off to you guys, like it's amazing.
Oh, thank you for that. And I think every councillor goes through it, whether you're a Glenn Milne and a Mark Eckel who've done 5 terms and 4 terms, or the 5 new ones that were elected, is that there's an immediacy of the individual who wants to be a activist, but then there's the reality of the format of council, and that can present challenges too in the early days, because you know, we are the strategy, should very much be like the board of council and are the strategy and build what we want. We feed all that information through our CEO, and I take my hat off to any CEO. G'day, Sarah, who's our CEO, Sarah Philpott.
Yeah.
And then, but we have to consider the previous 2 councils and project a couple of councils ahead to actually try and work out what themes are coming through consistently, what people want changed, and considering all the other views that the other 8 councillors bring and their connections. That's why there's 9 of us, because there's supposed to be, I wouldn't say hard, robust, considered and thoughtful debate, and then hopefully we rest on something and move on to the next decision. It seems to be quite a big merry-go-round.
Yeah.
The new council, you just mentioned there's 5 new councillors. How are they going? They're obviously new to it. Some of them that weren't even ever in the political space, but they've put their hand up, which I commend, just like Shonah mentioned before. It's probably thrown a massive new dynamic into the council. You know, are you enjoying sort of that leadership role? You know, I guess maybe mentoring and working with those newbies.
That word's come up a few times, newbies, and it's they are new, but I would say that they'd all had a engagement with politics in their own way. Whether Stefano with his history with politics when he was in Melbourne before he even came to Mildura, Liam Wood ran in the previous election. Cindy Power has had a lot.
Liam,
sorry,
I'm sure Liam pushes you out of your chair and assumes that mayoral role every now and then, doesn't he? Knowing him.
No, well, for me, you know, it's about being heard, and we've got every right to have a say. And I'm only the first among equals, so I want to support all the councillors and community to be comfortable with having your say, and then we have the discussion afterwards. But just to finish on the councillors, is Ian Arnie had a lot to do with the 2 years drought out in the Mildura, has been on land care for a long time, and Jodie Reynolds very much helped me in my local campaign federally a couple of years ago. So sometimes it looks like people have come from nowhere. People would have said that about me, but when I got voted on. But I think there's always a pedigree to people's politics, and it's just when it's expressed. The other interesting thing is we've had a new local government act, and we've been through COVID. So there's a few other stresses in the background that have made our induction probably a bit bigger than the one I went through first time. But all my colleagues are standing up to it. I think Councillor Eckel, Councillor Milne and Councillor Healy have been refreshed by that engagement again, remembering that Councillor Healy didn't go through the induction last time because she replaced Ali Cupper when she went on to be a state member. So there's always a dynamic. We have great stuff. If you look at the money that we've attracted as a council, particularly for South Mildura and the Powerhouse over the last 4 years, it's been quite phenomenal to see good thought out strategies come to play. So, but yeah, it's been really exciting.
Cool. So exciting.
Oh, if you look, no, you're right. If you look at the riverfront itself, that was the first plan to re-engage the riverfront was done in 1999 or 2000, and then the first big build started in late 14, early 15. So there's this understanding of how we move through the strategy into getting the money and then implementing what the council have set out to do through their CEO.
Yeah, that has absolutely changed. Sorry, Shonah. That's absolutely changed the dynamics of our town, that riverfront. There's no doubt about it. You know, that the work that's been put down there is from a real estate point of view, I've mentioned before on these, it's changed the whole dynamic, where people want to be and how they want to position themselves, where they want to live. You're proud to be able to show people that riverfront, whereas before people didn't know where the riverfront was in Mildura if they came here on holidays. So I think that things like that is are great for our town.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a new stage, isn't there? There's a new stage now for the riverfront. Is that correct?
Yep, that's the re-engagement of the old powerhouse, which is that wonderful hulking building that has sat down there on the previously disengaged side. As I just said, Mark, if you had have come in from Adelaide and parked, anywhere between 8th and 10th Street around Deakin or the CBD, you might not have known where the river is. It's a really good step up. But if anybody wanted to, anybody can jump on and see the riverfront master plan, which talks about that whole redevelopment from the bridge all the way around to the art centre, and we're continually applying for money to try and finish that off. Because back to real estate, I think one of my favourite stories is I looked at a house. I think it was back from the corner on the 11th Street side of Olive and 10th Street, going towards St Joe's there, or Sacred Heart.
Yep.
It was on the nearly 500 square metres. It was a 3-bedroom weatherboard. I think it might have been 94 or 95, and I think it was 55,000. And back then, I was 25. I was like, oh my God, it's a bit much.
It's a bit much, yeah.
A bit expensive. So now,
I think it's probably worth 50 grand.
I was thinking more like 45 at the time, but I do have a half Italian side to my family, so you've got to. And just to talk about that too, my father and his brothers always used to say, and I was very late to buy a house because I enjoyed travelling for quite a long time, was what you buy it for today, you won't be able to buy it for tomorrow. And that's usually a rule of thumb in most real estate, and that's a good example of how far the CBD has come along.
Very good. What's the most common question or concern that you get from the community or the municipality as a whole? What's the one thing that you often have people ringing you for or contacting you for that is a genuine concern of them, maybe at the moment or since you've started?
I think some people just want to chat. Like, it'll be interesting. The topical one is waste has changed in our community since the Chinese stopped taking all our waste, and we've had to implement changes that have generated a third bin, which has been a huge success in deferring waste from our landfill, which will cost us less in the long run. Now, that's been a huge one. It is an inconvenience, but it's a process of learning something new again. And places in Europe and Japan and North America have 4 bins. You actually end up with the circular economy or product stewardship. Whoever makes it ends up back with the centralized product again. So that's been a big concern. The other one for me, it's really simple things like I've got a lot of, retired blokes that I probably used to work with on job sites who ring up and say, oh, there's a tree down, or that toilet's overflowing in Henderson Park. So there's a really nice network of people who are just comfortable to ring me, community members, ratepayers do like to ring people they know. So I'm assuming all my colleagues get the same calls. But things like that, simple, practical things, and they're dealt with usually pretty much straight away.
The 3 bin system, would they notice if I swapped the green and the red lid?
That's been pointed out quite a bit, but all the studies, like there was a. Sorry, mate, you go on.
No, I was just going to say I think they're the wrong size, but yeah. Anyway, you keep going.
Oh no, it was. I think that started in 2012, and there was a full 6-month trial done in Merbeen with an 83% approval rate. Everybody was very pleased. It's that initial change, and we have an officer who can come out and show people how to break down their waste, so you end up with the right product in the right bin. I shouldn't say that, waste product in the right bin. And like any change, it takes a little bit of challenging of the self to get over it and try and get it right. I've had weeks where I've had to do secondary runs because there's been too much, but I'm working really hard to not do that as well.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat with that, aren't we? So let's talk about some exciting developments that are happening in Mildura. There's a few funding, like the MRCC have got a recovery fund. That's correct, yes, for local businesses. Yep. Yeah, so business differential rate payers. Can you explain that for us?
So the rate burden is spread across the rateable properties. These are the things you learn when you get on council. So everybody should share a similar burden. It's really a wealth tax in a very simple way, and I think the average person pays 0.00068% percent of the dollar of the value of their property. The business rate differential is a little bit larger because people operate in the CBD, and farmers have an offset differential as well to give them a bit of a handout. So that so that money is offset to sort of keep the CBD and all other businesses up to scratch. But there's been a chance to, with the recovery fund, for people to get an offset on that and maybe do up the front of their building or help pay for their rates for the next 12 months, just because COVID's been so hard on all businesses. This weekend is a perfect example.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that obviously, as mayor, you'd be getting a lot of questions. Obviously, Sky News want to talk to you about Mildura. the distance, obviously, we are from Melbourne. The fact that we haven't had those cases, it's obviously a big frustration from everyone you speak to, that we are, we struggle because we don't necessarily get the funding that maybe your Bendigos and Ballarats do. And then we're thrown in that. I mean, we are one state, obviously aware of that, but are you getting that frustration from local business owners, towards you, saying, come on, can we just kick on and get back to normality? Because this is something, I think, this last lockdown that is probably hit a little hard. We literally can't do anything. We are, from a real estate point of view, last time we could do private inspections. This time we can't do anything. I'm talking to builders that are not even allowed to go to a building site. It's hurting our economy, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It is, and it's difficult. And just to respond to those, I think this one really hurts the most because I think everybody thought we were through it. I thought everybody thought we were not going to go back there again. The very difficult thing there is, I think the reason why, and it's been spoken about a bit, I think Ali Cuppa touched on it, is that Terminal 4 is where where we fly in and out of our airport. So that had an infection. And that is one of the reasons why I think we were locked down. It was the snap lockdown. So that's to try and alleviate any infections here. But to back that up with what you're saying, Mark, is that yes, we are 550 k's away. There will be pressure applied, and it's been spoken about probably since the middle of last year, to have like a New South Wales traffic light system, green, amber and red. If we continue to have no cases and our terminal at the airport that we fly in and out of is clean and doesn't have a case, we probably, and we're talking about that as councillors today, to get some letters out to ask for that to happen, so we can try and participate as we usually would do in our daily lives, because we really haven't had a case since April last year. So you're on the money. It is frustrating. What I'd also say is that they're the state-defined boundaries that have been there for a long time. It doesn't make it any easier, but we probably should adhere to it until we get the tick off, and hopefully that happens at 11:59 tomorrow evening.
What's your prediction there?
I've been working all morning, so I haven't really looked at the press, but I think yesterday Dan Andrews said that it's tracking quite well, and if we get zeros today and zeros tomorrow, there'll be a good chance that we will come out. The other thing too is quarantine is a federal issue, and I think a little bit more cooperation between the states and the feds would have helped more rural and regional areas. It's that idea that the federation and the states shouldn't be something that divides us through politics. It should be unite us through an outcome for the benefit of the region that has had to close down after not having a case since April. So yeah, but it's a hard one, and you've got to try and be balanced. And which one of the three of us would like to be in Dan Andrews' shoes at the moment, or even Gladys Berejiklian? And like you were saying earlier, Shonah, it's hard work, it's full time, and you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So fingers crossed so we can start to move forward in Mildura and, start getting these events and community things happening again, markets and, all the things that we took for granted. It'd be awesome to get that back up.
It'd be good to have
and I think it would be great to have a lovely Easter, but also, taking things for granted. We do live in an area where there's great open space. We can social distance. You can go out for a walk along the river or, up and down Deakin Avenue, whatever you want. They're the things that we really need to focus on and really appreciate it when we get through all this.
Yeah, for sure. So can you give us a bit of a heads up on what's happening for South Mildura? That's something that we can look forward to. Things are really going quickly over there from what I can see.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story too. I think Councillor Eckel dragged out a press release with him standing in front of that empty plot on the corner of 16th and Deakin in 2003. So it's been in the pipeline a long time. We're very lucky to have had $17 million from the federal government, supported by previously Andrew Broad and then Ann Webster. 3 million and 10 million from the state government through Ali Hupper's lobbying, and then we've put in 8 million ourselves. It'll actually alleviate pressure from number 1 Oval, which was one of the real reasons South Mildura was taking place, because there was too many tenants there. So, you know, there's six basketball courts. You'll be able to play volleyball, netball, table tennis, football and cricket. You know, there's already been talk of a pre-season football match. Richmond are very interested. We're already in a good relationship with them. They run Waves through Aligned Leisure and manage all our pools. So it's just ticking along nicely. The grass has gone out there to get 12 months growing before pre-season footy starts. I think they're working on the entry and exit of the centre now on Deakin Avenue too. So it really is coming along, but that reflects back to that 4.5 or 5 years of hard work and strategy and lobbying to deliver the money. I remember being a deputy mayor on my first year under Glenn. We'd go to the audit committee and we'd tick off on things that we'd achieved, and South Mildura would always just get the little hyphen, you know. And then 2.5 years later, well, and not in a bad way. It was just we'll keep applying. We'll keep applying. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that I'd really like to get across to the community, is that councillors and the staff and the CEO work really, really hard to build that strategy and to try and deliver. And to tap it into the riverfront, South Mildura will do to that end of town what the riverfront development has done to the river end. And I think projected maybe 4.5 to 7,000 people out there by 2040. So, you know, Mildura is going to be one big heaving town by the time I'm 65. So it'll be huge. I shouldn't project that. Yeah. But no, and it is going ahead well. The other interesting thing too is there's probably been a little bit of talk in the press about contracts and where they go and how they do it. I think the riverfront, over 75% of all the work done was done by locals, and South Mildura is tracking the same way. We have procurement processes in place that really endeavour to look after locals first, very much acknowledging that sometimes you want something done and it might be too big for a local to do. So naturally that will go to someone from Adelaide or Melbourne or Sydney, and everybody's able to apply for the work from council. And we do really try and hit above that 75% of work that's done from locals, because it just spreads through the community. It's a great result.
I think now that with COVID, everything that we've obviously been through as a community, you know, it seems like we are trying to support each other in that regard. We're trying to look out for each other because, you know, we are fairly isolated, and I think we are trying to, we feel a little bit like we're out on our own. So it's nice to know that we are supporting each other, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I also think that it has felt to me lately like we are well supported in the government space. We're getting heard. I think that's the biggest difference. Yeah. We're getting heard. You know, we're getting listened to. There's people that are fighting for what they believe in our, whether it's Ali, you know, all these things that I just really think that Mildura's on the map, and we are going to grow. There's no doubt about it. You know, I was saying to a mate of mine last Friday, Mildura's back. You can feel it around the town. And then obviously by Friday afternoon, obviously this lockdown happens. It is what it is. We're just going to have to push through it. We just got to be positive and push through it. But it feels like we're well represented by you guys, and it feels like we're well represented by, you know, the people in government. Now, I think that's really important.
Well, to comment on that, I think it's important to let people know that we are contactable and we do want to be heard. And reflecting back on all our own stories of what we're passionate about, is that's the structure that's there. And if you want to change it and you want to be involved, put your hand up and see how you go. But if you don't, and you just want to talk to a local member or a councillor or a federal member, we're always accessible, and that's part of this democracy that we're in. And we are in a great democracy, and it works really well a lot of the time. But it's based on community groups getting together and applying pressure and putting a strategy forward for an outcome that they see suitable for themselves, and trying to distill that through the municipal, state, and federal system. We do pretty well at it. But as you said, that isolation and that distance, that tyranny of distance that we've always had, it's going to become less and less, but it's still going to be a part of our culture. We're very resilient. Things just get done here. But you're right, that secondary level of representation, of asking the big questions in Spring Street and in Canberra, will be very, very important.
Very good.
I think it's going to be great. I think Mildura, and with the lockdowns and with Victoria being shut off, and Mark and I have mentioned this plenty of times, how people are visiting Mildura not just for the first time, but they're coming back after maybe 20 years and seeing the difference in how it's looking and the vibe and the energy around Mildura. And I just think that we're going to keep seeing, not just in lockdown when the borders are shut, I just think we're going to keep seeing people come to Mildura as the place to be, to visit for tourism, or even to move here and find real estate to invest.
Well, I think there has been, just from discussions I've had, people are looking at investing all the time, whether it's in a little 2-bedroom unit or a larger property closer to the city. It's happening out there. And what I'm interested in, to follow on that, Shonah, is what is this complete redevelopment of the riverfront going to look like? How is that going to transform the old CBD whilst engaging with Centro so they can bat off against each other? You've got two choices rather than just one. And you guys have seen it, as how many properties in the old CBD that were, 700 metres or 500 metres have been cut in half for units, because people want to live on smaller lots. They don't want big gardens. They just want to be very close to the river, to Feast Street. It was funny, we walked out of a meeting the other night, and I walked down Langtree Avenue, and two people on separate occasions said, "Oh, this is Feast Street." And I don't think they were locals. Mildura prides themselves on this street because they've got that many choices in food in such a short distance, and it's been like that for 35 or 40 years. So let's appreciate that. Let's identify that as being a positive, and work to get more people in there.
Yeah, exactly. Can you give us, I'm going to be real cheeky here, can you give us a little bit of a heads up about maybe the discussions about opening up the mall?
Look, I think that's a really interesting one, and there's some foundation documents behind the CBD. One is the CBD plan, which I think is like a 210-page document that we signed off on 2 years ago, and the Langtree Avenue discussion paper. They talk about the future direction and the lateral engagement with the riverfront. They're all on the board, and councillors have discussed them recently. I think it's a really important point to remember that we have just come out of 12 months of COVID. It's been the biggest recession/depression we've seen, bigger than 87, than the GFC, nearly bigger than 1929. So I think we need to calibrate where we're at, look at the space, and that's just not the mall, that's the whole CBD. Look at what's happening and the money that's being spent around it, and have that very honest discussion with the traders, with council, with the people who run the space, and with the community, which is all in the CBD plan and the Langtree Avenue discussion paper, and see where we fit down the track. As a single person within council, I wouldn't comment on it, because it has to go through all of us and what we agree to do in the long run through all that consultation and engagement first. So there's a lot of work there, and I encourage anybody, if they've got a spare 2 days, to read the CBD plan, read the Langtree Avenue discussion paper, and look at that lateral connection and try and project what that big spend on the riverfront will generate once it's all finished in the next couple of years.
We read that this morning, didn't we, Shonah?
Pardon, what was that?
We read that this morning, that CBD
plan.
Yeah.
Oh, look, and that's, our staff have gone over and above through consultation and engagement to present a very level-headed overview of the positives. Very much realising that there's not much open public space in the Mildura CBD. I think there's 2%. Melbourne's about 15%. If the mall was removed or put down to partial traffic, you're going to make it less attractive for people to want to go in there. How does that balance out with trade? There's always talk of shop sizes. I think if you look at the success in business around the CBD, a lot of the things that are doing well are smaller footprints than the shops that aren't being rented at the moment. You guys are in real estate. Is there a rent issue? Are they too high? I don't know that. That's just a question. So, it'd be wonderful to have a silver bullet, but I don't think that's there. Hence, making these foundation documents very, very important on the next decision that's made.
Yeah, these decisions on the mall, like everyone's got an opinion on it, whether you should open up or put grass down, whatever it is. But I think probably the one thing that COVID's done is probably made people change their way of shopping. Naturally, everyone's going online. There's a real threat to retail shopping. There's no doubt about it. There already was, I think, in Mildura, but now that's probably compounded that problem. So yeah, it's a very tricky one to be investing a lot of money in doing that when there are already a lot of empty shops. Are there shops empty because of the mall, because there's no access? I don't know, but I think that's a scary scenario. A lot of people will be afraid to go and invest in money in setting up a shop. The rents are probably typically quite high because they were hard to get. So there's different ways you can look at it. But I think the mall's always going to be a contentious issue, along with the rates and along with the red bin system, the 3-bin system. but we have, like you said, we evolve.
Yeah, we do, and I think there's been. I remember as a kid with my brother, going out to the 244-gallon drums and tipping all the waste in there and burning it. Like, we've come a long way from 1978, and that's that evolution, and that's the importance of a reasonable discussion and needing to be robust. Like, if someone has an issue and they've got a bit of blood up, let them have their say, and then have the deeper discussion and say, okay, what's the strategy? What are we trying to achieve? If we do implement this, how much is it going to save you out of your pocket if we can have the landfill last for another 15 years rather than having it cap it now? Because there's all these other issues going on in the background with cost and EPA. But that will keep coming around. Yeah, and you're right. The market, particularly in retail, is being heavily attacked by online shopping, and that's probably been a 10-year development, and with COVID being inside, of course we're all going to shop online. So when the time comes, let's all go back to the CBD or back out to Centro and do all our shop, or Redcliffs or Merbeen or Murrayville or Oyen, and do all our shopping in our local little precincts, so that the circular economy works initially out of your pocket and then on from everything else. So.
Yeah, and don't avoid shopping online locally either, because if that's a choice,
Yeah. Oh, look, totally. And once again, I think that's an interesting connection point, Shonah, because it doesn't have to look like it did, or what are the things to draw people into a space where they once went, but they don't go anymore? What are the reasons for that? Is it self-talk? Is it us saying, I do like my town and it presents pretty well? There might be a few issues with retail at the moment, but how do we rectify that? We rectify that by saying it's a great space. There's lots of restaurants. It's in a state of renewal because of the riverfront. Let's move on and appreciate the very unique city we've got. Like, I remember when we did all the work for the Rotunda, Gary Stanley's our heritage architect, and he talks about the blueprint of Mildura City, which is 7th Street to 20, whatever it is, and then Deakin and Langtree and Lime and all those. And he said that should be heritage listed, because it's the first time in Australian history that investors from America, the Chafies, were more like a mid 20th century American development project rather than an Australian one, came and bought the land and then laid the plan over it, and then people came, where the colonisation of Australia had been completely the other way. You just pushed out into what was supposedly terra nullius, and just acknowledged the traditional owners of the country we're on today and their elders past, present and emerging. So we have a really different feel and a culture as a town because of all those little reasons we've spoken about today, and it's very important to respect it and try and understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a conversation. This has been great. We won't keep you too much longer. Have you got anything to add, Mark?
We just love Mildura, don't we?
We do. This is why we do what we do, Jace, because we obviously we're passionate about real estate and getting the wins for everybody, but also we're very community driven, and we just love Mildura and just attracting people to here. So when we're all on board, when the community and our government are all on board and we're as a collective and doing that, I think we're on a win.
Well, I thank you very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate what you do, and I very much will reiterate what I said. To bring an intimate version of your own world to your peers, particularly in a 5 days like we're having now, is essential. And I hope other people take inspiration from what you guys have done. And happy to come on again. I really appreciate the invite. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. We'd love to have you. All right, so let's wrap it up. Enjoy your day wherever you are in Australia, and I'm sure we're Australia-wide by now, aren't we, Mark?
Oh, surely. Yeah.
Have to be thought of.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. for the next episode.
Yeah,
Bye
and
for now.
hopefully everyone in Mildura or surrounds during this lockdown are okay, and making sure that if we do get extended, that if you are single or by yourself and you're very isolated, put your hand up, because it's a scary time at the moment. So put your hand up, and there's plenty of people out there that'll help you. But Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a great chat.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Shonah. Have a good day.
No worries at all. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.